Okay. Okay. So tonight, as Hashem, with the help of Hashem, we're going to get into the Hilchot, what's known as Kvi'at Eitim Torah. Right. So sometimes people ask you, are you Kaveya Itim? Or when they're looking through shidduch resumes, they want to see that it says on the boy's resume that he's Kaveya Itim. Okay, so what does Kaveya Itim actually mean? Kaveya Itim mean he sets time. Okay, it sets time to learn. That means, when you take something serious, you make a time for it. One of the things they say about serious marriages is like the couple takes time to work on it. They take 10, 15 minutes a day, whatever it is, to seriously discuss it and talk about stuff and work on stuff. So Kaveh Itim is you set aside time. Now, how much time? We'll see. When I go through the halachic ramifications of that, you're going to see, interestingly, like throughout the halachic sources we're going to look, throughout the generations, like it went from like 12 hours to like 9 hours to like 3 hours to like 5 minutes, right? So Kaveh Itim. This is the what we're going to be looking at today. So source number one in the Tzurba, he starts over the Shulchan Aruch, and this comes right at the end of Hilchot Shaharit. So right after Alein Mishbeach, after all the Hilchot of Shaharit, Shulchan Aruch starts off by saying in Simon Kufnun Hey, Achar Sheyetze Beit HaKnesset, after a person comes out of the Beit HaKnesset, Yelech LeBeit HaMedrash, he should go to the Beit HaMedrash, Vayikava et Lilmod, and he should designate time to study Torah. Interesting. Shulchan Aruch uses lashon Sheyetze Beit HaKnesset. He leaves from the Beit HaKnesset. I once heard, and I famously, I said it over many times, but I once heard it from Rabbi Ilay Mansour. It says in Pasuk, right? The Yaakov Ishtam Yoshev Ohalim. That Yaakov was a simple man. He was sitting in tents, right? So the question is, why does it say tents? Yoshev Ohalim. Say Yoshev Oil. He was sitting in the tents. That's it. It's enough. Why? Now I know he's learning Torah. So he brought down that it means that he was in the Ohel of Tefillah. He was praying, and afterwards he was Yatsa. He came out of the prayer tent and he went to the tent of Torah study, right? So this is similar to what the Shulchan Aruch is saying. Once you leave the shul, Yelech LeBeit HaMedrash. Now, obviously, today most of our Beit Medrashs double as a shul, so we're davening and learning in the same place. But the idea still is you should leave the tefillah, right? And before you leave shul, before you go to your daily routine, you should set time to learn. So here, Baruch Hashem, here, because I see every day, whenever I'm here, in the morning, I see that right here on this table that we're learning tonight, everyone comes and congregate, and anyone who can stay, stays, and they come and they learn together. And this is what it means. Now, interesting to note, in the Shulchan Aruch, Rav Yosef Karo deals with Hilchot of learning Torah twice. He does it once in Orach Chaim, which we're looking at today, some in Kufnan Hay, and he also does it in Yeridea. Right? He also does the parameters of learning Torah in Yeridea. Shulchan Aruch brings it twice. The Hilchot of Talmud Torah. Must be that Talmud Torah is very important. You have to look at it in both sections, Orach Chaim and in Yeridea. Anyway, now the question is, for us, how much time do we learn Torah that we need to be Kaveh Itim? And if a person does have limited time, what does he focus on in his learning? So the first thing is, Shulchan Aruch said we have to learn Torah every single day, set aside time to learn. Where do we know this from? Where is the initial source that the poskim use to say that you have to learn Torah every day? So in source number 2, the Tzurba brings a pasuk in Yehoshua. Right? This is the Navi Yehoshua. And it says here as follows. Lo yamush, and we say this every time in Tefillah as well. Lo yamush sefer Torah hazeh mipicha v'agita bo yomam v'layla. Man tishmor la'asot echol ha'ketuvo ki az tatich et derchecha ve'az taskil. Right? We say this Shabbos morning before Yimloch. Right. So what does it say? The Torah scroll should not go away from your mouth, and you should be with it day and night. V'hagita bo yomam v'layla. So this pasuk on the simple level is telling us you have to be involved in Torah day and night. V'hagita bo yomam v'layla. Now, similar to like the Shulchan Aruch, we said he talks about Talmud Torah in two spots. In Talmud Bavli, there are also two sugyas in the Gemara, two different Gemaras that deal with learning Torah. And it has two rabbis over. It has Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Rabbi Ishmael. And we're going to see that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in one Gemara says one thing, and in the other Gemara says another thing. He is soter. It seems to be like he's contradicting himself in two Gemara. And the same thing with Rabbi Ishmael. Let's start off with the lesser famous Gemara. The one in Berachot is more famous. Source 4 is more famous. Source 3 is a little less famous. So let's start off with source number 3. Masechet Menachot. So this is Masechet Menachot, Daf, Tzadik, Tet, Amid Bet. Amr Yochai Mishum Bar Yochai. Afilu lekara adam elikriyat shema shachari b'aravi, kayem lo yemush. If a person just said Shema in the morning and the night, he was mekayem the pasuk. It says in Yehoshua to learn Torah day and night, because you said Shema during the day and you said Shema Torah during the night. That is enough to be mekayem the mitzvah of Torah. So since from Shimon Bar Yochai, the minimum is say Shema. Okay, now the Gemara continues. Sha'el ben Dama ben Achotos Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Ishmael. Ben Dama was the nephew, right, of Rabbi Ishmael, Rabbi Ishmael's sister's kid. And he asked Rabbi Ishmael as follows. He says, Kegoinani, someone like me, Shalamati kol Torah kula. I learned all of Torah. Mahu lilmod chachmat yavanit. What's the din? Can I learn Greek wisdom? Okay, Greek wisdom, whatever the wisdom that they had at the time. So Rabbi Ishmael says to him, Karelov, Amikra Azeh. It says, Lo Yemosh Sefer Torah Zeh Picha V'Gita B'Yom V'Layla. So he says to him, it says you have to learn Torah day and night. So if you want to learn Chachmat Yavanit, right, very apropos as we're coming to Hanukkah, right? Say Uvdoik Shah She'en Loi Min Hayoy V'Loi Min Halayla V'Lilmoid V'Chachmat Yavanit. So he said to him, find a time that's not day, find a time that's not night, and you can learn Chachmat Yavanit. Because otherwise, the pasuk says you have to spend day and night learning Torah. So that's what he told him. So it seems from here, Rabbi Shmuel holds, you got to learn Torah all day. You can't learn Greek wisdom because you have to learn Torah day and night. Now, the Gemara continues. Please, Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Rabbi Yonasan, pasuk says, "Ein lechayev, but let me say the bracha." Shmuel bar Nachmani says, no, you guys are reading this pasuk wrong. This pasuk is not a mitzvah to learn Torah day and night. The pasuk is not a chova. It's not making an obligation to learn Torah day and night. Rather, the pasuk is Ela bracha. When it says Lo Yemosh Sefer Torah Zeh Picha V'Gita B'Yom V'Layla, it's actually a bracha, not a chayva, not a mitzvah. Ra Kadosh Baruch Hu Yeshua Shedivrei Torah Chavim Malav Yoser. He saw that Yeshua really, really loved Torah. So Hashem said to him, you know what? Because you see, Yeshua ben Nun never left the base medrash from Moshe Rabbeinu. He was always there, always at his side. So Hashem said to Yeshua, you love Torah so much. Yeshua, you love the great Torah. I'll give you a bracha. The Torah should never leave you. Okay, so from Gemara Menachot, we have three opinions about Lo Yemush Sefer Torah Zeh Mipicha. We have first the opinion of the Bishum Bar Yochai, who says as long as you just say Kriya Shema day and night, you learn Torah enough. Minimum is enough. According to Rishmal, his nephew asked him, can I learn Greek wisdom? He said, when? Day and night, you got to learn Torah. So when do you have time to learn Greek wisdom? And then the third opinion, which is really not going to be a source of halacha for us, but the third opinion of Shlomo bar Nachmani, who said that, no, that pasuk is just a bracha to Yehoshua. All right, now this would all be fine and dandy if we didn't have the next source, which is the more famous source of the machloket of Rabbi Shmuel and Shimon bar Yochai, that seems to be The exact opposite of the Gemara in Menachot. Tanura Banan, source 4, 259. Tanura Banan. It says in Pasuk, the Asafta Diganecha. You should gather your grain. Ma Talmud Lomar. What is the Torah saying? Because it says in Torah. You might think you have to do it like it says in that pasuk. All day, all night, you have to learn. And you can't do anything else. That's what you might think. Talmud Lomar, the Torah comes to teach us the Asaf Diganecha, Hanheg Bahen Min Hag Derech Eretz, Divrei Rabbi Ishmael. Rabbi Ishmael now is saying, no. You might think you have to learn Torah day and night. Torah says Asaf Diganecha, go work. And when you're available to learn, learn. But when you have to work, you have to work. That's not what he said in Menachot, right? In the Gemara in Menachot, he said the opposite. He says there's no time to learn Greek wisdom. You got to be learning Torah day and night. And now he's saying you don't have to work day, you don't have to learn Torah day and night. You can go to work. You can do things. Hashem Bar Yochai. Hashem Bar Yochai Omer. Efshe Adam Charish B'Shach Harisha. B'Zareya B'Shat Zeriya. B'Kartza B'Shat Ketzera. B'Dash B'Shat Disha. B'Zayda B'Shat Haruach. Torah Mati Aleya. The person's always busy with his farm, and he's winnowing, and he's sowing, and he's reaping, and he's harvesting, and he's planting, and he's busy with his business. Kor, dingy, pull, every minute of the day. When is he going to learn Torah? Mate Alea. So, Elab is Manche Yisrael. So he says, you know what this means? Like, he's going to be Elab is Manche Yisrael, Oisin, Tzarna Shel Makom. When the Jewish people are doing the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, their work is done through others. It says in Yeshaya, in the book of Isaiah, it says that if you are doing your work, Goyim and other people will come and take care of you, take care of your businesses. And when the Jews are not doing the Ratzon of Hashem, then they have to do their own work. But not only that, not only they do their own work, they have to do Garisha people works also. You have to work for other people. As it says in Devarim, you would serve your enemy. So Amar Abaya, and here comes the Abaya. Abaya comes and says, Harba also Rabbi Shmuel. Many people did like Rabbi Shmuel. What was Rabbi Shmuel's opinion in Berachot? He said, you can, no, and Rabbi Shmuel in Berachot said, you learn, and when you have to work, you work. So he says, many people did like Rabbi Shmuel, and they were able to do it, and they were good in their hands. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Harba also Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, many tried to look at Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and didn't go in their hands. So many people try to be like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, learn all day and night, and it didn't work out for them. Okay, now, without the simple way to understand this is, but you do see people learning day and night. So it says, Harba Asu. When many people try to do this, meaning when every Tom and Joe and Harry decide that they're going to sit all day and learn all day, it's not going to work out for them. Rather, it's from the elite of the elite, they learn day and night. But leaving that aside for right now, what works and what doesn't work. We have a steer on the two Gemaras, right? We have in the Gemara in Masechet Menachot. Rabbi Shmuel says you have to learn day and night, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says Shema is enough. And Masechet Menachot, it's the opposite. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says you have to learn day and night, forget about working. Whereas Rabbi Shmuel says go to work. So you have here a stira in the opinions of these Tanoim, Rabbi Shmuel and Shimon Bar Yochai. Take a look at page 260. The Tzurba Mirabonon brings a chart to show us this stira. That you have Berachot. Rabbi Shmuel says work normally, and in Menachot he says study Torah full time. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Berachot study full time, and in Menachot he says all you have to do is say Shema. So how do we deal with this stira? How do we deal with this seemingly contradiction? So there's a beautiful Kehilot Yaakov, right? The Kehilot Yaakov is the Stipler Gaon, Rabbi Yaakov Yisrael Kinevsky, the famous father of Rav Chaim Kanevsky, Zecher Tzadik Lebracha. And this is the way he explains the chiyuv of learning Torah, and we'll see how it applies to our machloket over here, or our stira on the two sugyas in the Gemara. So he brings here from the Kehilot Yaakov. Benira the Gader Hukach. The Geder is like as follows: the Kol mitzvos chayovos, all mitzvahs that are obligatory. Gam kishu onos milakayim mitzvah v'leikalav taneh v'tvei al bitula b'kol malkum chiyuva ramei aleh. V'chamoisha chiach hagarin Rabbi Elchanan bonim wasserman shemikum dar. So he says, okay, you have to look at oinus first. When someone can't do a mitzvah, he's an honest. Can't make the mitzvah. He can't get it done. What does that mean to us? Is he patur from the mitzvah? He doesn't have to do the mitzvah? Or he still has a chiyuv to do the mitzvah, but he just can't do it, and we have no complaints against him. But the chiyuv is still there. Or do we say an honest is patur him? It redeems him from his mitzvah. So the Steipler Gaon says, from Beis Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, that no, when you are an honest, you're still chayiv in the mitzvah. You just can't do the mitzvah, so Hashem has no complaints against you, but the mitzvah is still, the chiyuv of the mitzvah, obligation mitzvah still exists. You just can't do it.
Positive commandment?
Yeah, what he's saying. The chol mitzvahs chayov, any mitzvahs that are chayiv, gam kishu arnis melakayim mitzvah, v'leika alav ta'ana v'tevia al bitula, v'kol makam chiyuva ramei aleya, still the chiyuv is still on him. And now he says, oh, well, could go mitzvah tzedakah. But when it comes to mitzvah tzedakah, this is what you're touching upon, Malkiel. When it comes to mitzvah tzedakah, mishu ani, the ein lo klau mai litain, einu begeder honest, rak palter. So now he says, when it comes to mitzvah tzedakah, everyone has to give tzedakah. Now, there's some people who are honest, they can't get tzedakah. They have no cash on them, they have no credit card, so they can't give it. But what about an ani? That's my example of an honest, but I don't know if it's a good example. But anyway, an ani, a poor person, he's not capable to give, right? He doesn't have money to give. He really doesn't have money to give. Then he's considered patur. The zeu ikar hashir litain tzedakah hu kefiya chulato. Giving tzedakah is according to your means. As much as you can give, right? And when you can't give, then there's no chiyuv to give, right? Tzedakah, as much as you can give, that's the chiyuv to give. If you can't give anything, then you're patur from the mitzvah because you can't give anything. So to the mitzvah that you do with your body, you mashi lasod ein ze begeder honest. It's not an honest. Rak zehu givul hashir shalom mitzvah. This is the boundary of the mitzvah. Sheyaseh k'pi chulato. He does according to what he do. Kivan sha'atari lo netin zman mishir kivua hashir hu k'pi chulato. Since the Torah did not provide a time and limit and a measure for this mitzvah, the Torah didn't say give X amount of tzedakah. The Torah said give k'pi chulato. Give as much as you can give. Now he brings us to Talmud Torah. Okay, look at the bold bold lettering on page 260. V'chein mitzvah Talmud Torah. The same applies to the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Kivan shaloi nitna bo Torah shir. The Torah never said how much you have to learn. The Torah didn't say you have to learn daf yomi, bavli, daf yomi, yerushalmi, daf mishnah, daf navi, daf this. It didn't say any of that. The Torah says you have to learn Torah. So the mela, it must be hachiv hu kifiyah chulato. The chiv is as much as you can learn. Now, if someone only can learn a certain amount, that is as much as he's supposed to learn. Meaning, the mitzvah of Torah is no share. It's like tzedakah. You give as much as you can give. You can learn as much as you can learn. The person has to run to business, to work, but he can only learn whatever time he has left to learn. That's his chiyuv. That's his kosher. Who ad kamash efshaloi. Now, what is the actual minimum? The maximum, there is no maximum. The maximum is as much as you can. But the minimum, uperik echad arba chiyuv kavo baro. Dichtev hagita bayam v'layla. But she'anos uperik zeh machshev mivatel mitzvah. So the Stipler Gaon says, what is the minimum? The minimum is like Rabbi Yishmael in Menachot, or Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in Masechta Menachot, which was you have to say Shema day and night. That is the minimum chiyuv. So if you didn't do that, because of honest, then you were honest and you didn't do it. But the mitzvah still exists to say Shema day and night. You just didn't do it because you're an honest, whatever it was. But to learn after that, after Shema day and night, that's kifiyah chulato. That's as much as you can. So a person who can learn more has a chiyuv to learn more. A person who can learn less because of time constraints or whatever it is, mental constraints, then his chiyuv is less. So now, the Tzurba wants to say, based on the Kehilat Yaakov, based on this type of Gaon, we can make a resolution to the steer of the two Gemarot as follows. Look inside that brown box over there on page 261, that orange beige box. Second line, but at 2 dots. According to Rabbi Shmuel, one is obligated to study Torah anytime that he's capable of doing so. That's what Rabbi Shmuel said in Menachot. He said to his nephew, find a time that's neither day or night and go learn Chachmat Yivanit, right? You have to learn Torah all day. However, any time that he must devote to earning a livelihood is not included, and the mitzvah does not apply at that time, right? That, and based on the Kehilat Yaakov, right? The Stipler Gaon said your chiyuv to learn is as much as you can. So if you have to go to work, then you don't have to. Then you can go away from learning. So Rabbi Shmuel and Menachot and Berachot are actually complementary of themselves. Rabbi Shmuel and Menachot tells us the chiyuv is to learn as much as you can, day and night. And in Berachot he says, now if you have to go to work, you go to work. Okay. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he says as follows. He says, like he says in Menachot, Kriyat Shema, that's the chiyuv. The chiyuv Talmud Torah is saying Kriyat Shema night and day, right? What's the ideal? The ideal is to learn all day and all night. So based on this Stipler Gaon, it all makes sense, right? There is the Stipler Gaon said there's a chiyuv, minimum chiyuv, which is saying Shema. And after that, it's kifiyah chulato, as much as you can. So Rabbi Shmuel now works out in Menachot and Berachot together. They're complementing each other, as does Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. That they're all saying pretty much the same thing. There's a minimum, and then the maximum is depending on how much you can do. Okay? And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says the ideal is not to work at all and to learn all day. What about, how do we actually hold? Let's see, the Amorim and the Rishonim, what do they hold with this? So the Gemara in the Durham says, let's take a look. Amar Rav Gidol Amar Rav, ha'omer, ashkim v'ashana perik zeh, ashana mesechta zu, neder gadol neder lelukei Yisrael. Someone says, a neder, I'm going to wake in the morning, I'm going to study this perik, I'm going to study this mesechet. He has taken a neder. He's made a vow. Okay? He's made a vow. Person says, I'm going to learn in the morning this parak or this pasachet. He's made a neder. Now the Gemara says, but how? Isn't he already in a shvua? He already has, he can't make another neder because he already swore to learn Torah. Where did he swear to learn Torah? Where? In the stomach? Right? Okay, so he has the shvua to learn. So here he wants to say it's due to the general obligation to study Torah. Right? He has lo yamush sefer Torah ze'picha. So that's already a chiyuv. That's already your promise. You promise to keep all the Torah, all the mitzvot. That means including learning Torah. So how could you take that upon yourself? So he wants to say, you can't, he says, Rabbi Gidol in the earlier sugya in this Gemara in the Durham said that you can make sometimes a promise to motivate yourself. So, to get yourself to do, even though you already have a chiyuv, make another promise to motivate yourself. But if you give me that answer, you already said that above. Oh, he says, you know why it works? The Gemara says because your chiyuv of learning Torah is just saying Shema. That's the minimum chiyuv. So when you are now saying, I'm going to learn more, the neder is going on what's more than the minimum. Okay? That's how the neder works. That's a simple understanding in this Gemara. Since if he desires, he can exempt himself through the minimum of Shema in the morning and night. Due to that reason, the oath takes effect upon him, and he's obligated to study the chapter or tractate that he specified. Okay. Now, moving on to page 262, he brings from the Ritva. The Ritva says as follows. We answer that since if he desires, he can exempt himself with the Shema in the morning and the evening, the oath therefore takes effect upon him, right? That's what we said. Since he can get away with his chiyuv, Shema, night and day, he's sure it works. This means that which he said, that if one wishes to exempt himself with Shema in the morning and the evening, and fulfill obligation studying day and night, that implies the Ritva wants to limit this chiyuv of Shema day and night, and that fulfills your obligation. When he's not able to do more. So the Ritva says, no, this Gemara means that if he, the way the Ritva learns this Gemara is as follows. The Ritva says that you're telling me, how does the promise take place, right? I'm going to learn this Masechet, that's a neder. It's a great neder to Hashem. Promise. We asked, how could it be a promise? You already have to learn Torah. Oh, my minimum is to learn Shema. So I can promise more. The Ritva says that's only if you're unable to do more than Shema. Then that neder is for the extra stuff. But if you're able to learn more, then your minimum is not just Shema. Your minimum is more than that. All right? That's going again, like you had in Menachot with Rabbi Shmuel, that said, you have to learn Begita Bo Yom V'Layla. And Rabbi Shmuel and Brachos is V'Safti Ganecha. That's what the Ritva is saying. Same idea that you have to be able, like the disciple Gaon said, you have to learn all the time unless you can't, or whatever restraints you have.
This topic is very controversial. Some people, they're gonna use this idea. Oh, I just gonna say Shema. It covers all my Torah learning.
Right. So that's what the Stipler Gaon. That's what the Ritva. That's the way we're learning the Gemaras. Is saying that's not true. Avram Chaimov, he has time to. He has a couple of minutes here and there, and he's not going to be potter from just Shema. He needs to learn Pelioetz. He needs to learn Yesharim, Chovat Levavot. He needs to learn Masecha. He needs to do different things because he can do it. That's what we're saying in the end. That the minimum obligation is not Shema. Rather, the minimum obligation is as much as you can do. After that is already considered more. Exactly at what point is that? I'm not sure. But that's the way it comes out. Look at Masechet Kedushin, source 8. It says, Tanu Rabbanan, Mishinantam. You have to teach Torah. Right? Mishinantam, right? The Bartavam, right? You divrei Torah, v'chodedim mipicha. You have to learn Torah so much that if someone asks you a question, al tigamgam v'tarmer ela oimer lo miyad. You shouldn't be stuttering to answer. Rather, you should answer it immediately, right? So Masechet Kedushin says you have to learn Torah so much that you know it clear. You're able to answer it very fast, and not to say e, right? Now, if you're saying your minimum is to learn just to say Shema, you're never going to be able to answer back because you're never going to know more than that. So from Masechet Kedushin, when it says Vishinantam, it must be that you have to learn very well. Rashi in Kedushin there says, you have to go back. A person has to be able to learn so much and review what he learned in order to be able to answer right away. This is what I mean with Shinantam. They should be sharp in your mouth. Okay. Similarly, he brings now from the Or Samech, where Meir Simcha of Tevitz. He says as follows: V'nir li levayer, deve'emet kol hamitzvot Hema shavim lefachot shevachotam v'lemoshe Rabbeinu alav shalom. He says usually all mitzvot are equal for everybody on the minimum level, right? Moshe Rabbeinu and every other person, every Joe Schmo has the same minimal level obligation of a mitzvah. The Torah chat yelachem, like it says in the Torah many times, you should have one Torah for everybody. The chiyuv mitzvah gvul yeshla, and there is a limit to the extent of the obligation. Kimoy netilat etrog benuna, right? The nunaim ba'alma yatsa. All you have to do is pick it up. Rak kamedaktikim nosim oto kol hayom v'chiyotziba. Right? With esrog and lulav, you can pick it up for a second. You're ready to do the mitzvah. Some people are so much loving the mitzvah, they go around and carry the esrog lulav all day. Lulav and etrog all day. So the minimum is to pick it up. The maximum is to do as much as you want. Beninsa mitzvah Talmud Torah asher revadei im yivakish adam terah from mazav v'cholza ein nichshav nafreya mitzvah Talmud Torah. Mitzvah Talmud Torah. If a person is trying to go and make a livelihood, it's not considered that he is throwing off Torah, because it says v'asafti genecha k'tiv chen l'moshe adam cholosh amazei. Same holds for a person who is not able to learn so well. He doesn't have a good brain. He can only sit for a half hour. He doesn't have what in Yiddish they call sitzfleisch, sitting meat, right? He has ants in his pants. He can't sit for a half hour or whatever it is. How can Hashem make a chiyuv on everybody to learn so much Torah if some people, by their temperament and their physical abilities, doesn't allow for that? So therefore, the Chacham came and said, you know what the minimum is? Every person, even the guy with the ants in his pants and the guy who can't sit for a half hour, they have to say Kriya Shema. Kriya Shema v'shachar, Kriya Shema v'arvit, Kayim v'gita v'yom v'layla. That is v'gita v'yom v'layla. That's Menachos, again, that's Rabbi Shishmal, that's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that's what they're saying. Ulam, yater mizeh, hu b'chlali ha-mitzvot, asher nivdelu v'nifredu b'zeh kol ish lefi orcho moto. He says, after that, that's the minimum obligation for everybody. But after that, the obligation is different for everyone. So, for Avram, your obligation is your obligation. Malkiel, your obligation is yours. Yosef, your obligation. Yosef, your obligation. Everybody's obligation to learn Torah is slightly different, depending on his kohot and depending on his free time. A person has to strengthen himself fully. Torah talks many times about talking, about learning. And a person must go to the doors and learn. Therefore, in Menachot, where we saw that you were in the Dharm, that you saw you're allowed to make a nether to learn more Torah, the reason the nether works is because the chiyuv is only the minimum. And after that, you can add on more. So it comes out again, over and over again. We see from Rameir Sucha of the Vinzer, Sameach, Stipler going, the way the Gemaras are being read out, the way we're learning it, is that there is a different minimum for everybody. The minimum for everybody is saying Kriya Shema. After that, it goes according to your ability. Sech Shabbos, Daf Lamed Aleph, Lamed Aleph. We're on source 11, page 264. Omar Rava, B'sha'ah shemachnisin adam l'din. When a person comes up to the next world for judgment, Amrim Lai. First thing they ask him is, Naset v'natet ve'emunah. Did you Nasata v'natata ve'emunah? Did you do business back and forth with emunah? Kiviyat itim l'Torah. Did you set Kiviyat itim l'Torah? You set time to learn. Eskat bepriya v'riviyah. Did you have children? Tzipita liYeshua. Did you wait for Mashiach? So we see right here that the second question that's asked. Now this is actually different Gemaras. Taisus deals with this. Which question is first? But Here, it's the second question that it says, did you set time to learn? So look what Rashi says. Since a person has to go and do derech eretz, he has to work, he has to make money. Shim ain't derech eretz, ain't Torah, because you don't have business, you don't have Torah, yevshar. Therefore, you have to set times, because if you don't set times, the business is always going to be pulling you away from learning. That's why you have to set time. That's what to be great. You have to set time, because otherwise, like we said all the way in the beginning, is that when you're taking something serious, you set time for it. I have something serious to do, I'm going to set time to do it, right? Most people don't say, when I get to work, I'll get to work, and I'll do a couple of things and I'll go back home. No, I got to be at work, and my business has to be open at this time, and I have to at least, whatever you make, you're taking it serious. You're making money there, right? Same thing comes to eating Torah. You have to set times that I'm going to do it now. If one day you can stay a little extra to learn, okay, so you stay a little extra to learn every day according to its day. I love that some places like here in Young Israel, on legal holidays, or Verizon also does this, on legal holidays, they have a whole learning program, right? Zach also does it, or Mansour. They make a whole learning program on a day. Why? Legal holidays. A lot of people who work in like institutions or places like that, they give up on legal holidays. So what are you doing now? You have time to learn. So you go and learn. And you have more time to learn. But on a regular day, when you have to work, you have to work. Take a look at the Rambam. Yes.
Quick question about setting time daily. You have to learn the same time every day, or it can be as long as we learn day and night in general?
No, so we're going to see
pick time every day.
The question is, does it have to be a set time every day, or meaning at 8 o'clock every morning I learn? Or does it mean I have to learn, if I can learn half hour every day, I learn sometime a half hour every day? So
every day, half an hour. It doesn't have to be
right.
a set time.
Every day half an hour, or is every day at the same time? That's the question. So we're going to see it's better to have a set time to do it, meaning I do it at X time every day. But we're going to see that if you can't do it one day at 8 o'clock because you have a big party and you got to go to the catering, you got to start it early. So then on that day, you can go to your business, start it early, but you have to make it up that day. Preferably that day, you have to make up that time.
The same time, but if you have some inconvenience, you can postpone as long as you learn it, right?
Right.
As long as
right. At the end of the day, yes. At the end of the day, that's okay. But it's not ideal in the first instance. You should try to do it every day at the same time. If you can't, for whatever reasons, you have a brit milah, you have a bar mitzvah, you have a hatuna, whatever it is, right? A lot of people have daf yomi shirim, they go every night. And then they have a wedding. What are they going to do? They're not going to go to the wedding. If you don't go to the wedding, gav, everyone's going to say he didn't come. So he's got to go. So he goes to the wedding and he makes up the daf. That's the way it's done.
Rabbi Moshe, what about people when they go to Metz Minyan? Every day is different time. So every day, meaning they finish Shachrit, if they learn after.
Yeah. So it'll be
the way it works out, it's
right.
not going to be the same time every night. It's
right.
going to be different times throughout the year.
You're right. Okay, you are right. So then the time will be after Shacharit, right? Sometimes you'll see on the shul schedules, it says Aravit following Mincha or Aravit following Sudah Shlishi. They don't say an exact time. Following, that's also a set time. Okay. Rambam. Kol Ishmi Yisrael Chai v'Talmud Torah. This is what the Rambam says in Hilchot Talmud Torah. Kol Ishmi Yisrael Haya b'Talmud Torah. Ben Ani, Ben Asher, Ben Shalem begufo, Ben Bayusurin, Ben Bahur, Ben Sheyazaken Gadol, Shetashesh Koho. The Rambam says everybody has to learn Torah. Young, old, rich, poor. Even if he has pains, his body is hurting him, he still has to learn Torah. Afilu haya ani hamitparanes min hatzedakah. Even if he's an ani that has to take from the tzedakah, umachzer ala patachim, and he has to go to the doors to collect. Va'afilu, now this he has to see. The Rambam puts this even. That's what he says. Va'afilu bal isha obonim, and even a married man with children. Right? The Rambam puts that in its own category. While isha obonim, right? Because it is his own category. All of us youngsters that have young families, you know how busy it can get. You can get very busy. Rambam says, "Va'afilu b'alisha bonim chayev likvoa lo izman l'talmud Torah b'yoyim u'v'layla shene'emar v'agita bo yomam v'layla." The Rambam says that the chiyuv applies to every single male. Every single Jewish male has a chiyuv to learn Torah. No one is excused. Okay, even if you're running a multi-million-dollar business, you're still not excused. And even if the poorest of the poorest, you're going around collecting all day, still not excused. Even if you have pains, right? Ben Bayu Surin, even if he has pains, still not part of from learning Torah. That's how important Torah learning is every single day. Now this is where Avram, this is what you were saying. Rav Acha Bar Yaakov Yezif Ufareya. So he would borrow and repay. That means if he didn't learn at a certain time that day, he would then pay it back at night. Meaning if you have a set time to learn and you weren't able due to circumstances, you pay it back, right? This is a famous story. The idea is very famous with Rav Chaim Kanevsky. They said that he was getting his son married, whatever. He told his in-laws, the future in-laws, that he has to go now because he has chovos, he has obligations. So they thought chovot as in being monetary because he owes money. So they said, "We'll help you out." He said, "You can't help me." He says, "Why not?" He says, "My chovot, my obligations is to learn Torah, right? So if you have an obligation to pay somebody $100 and you can't pay him in the morning, you're paying him at night. It's the same idea when it comes to Torah. You can't pay it now, you're gonna pay your obligation later. You have to pay it up." Rashi said,
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Let's say a person missed his obligation in the morning. Can he make it up at night, double
what
the
he's
time?
saying, yeah. That's what he's saying, yeah.
Yeah, but that does not cover the idea of Yom day and night.
You're right. You're right. So that's a how. So good. Now I want you to answer this. How was he mekuyim v'agita boyom v'layla? What's the minimum?
just
What's the minimum?
Added an extra hour or more time.
So what's the minimum of Torah learning? We said, like everyone's saying, it's Shema. When he said Shema in the davening, that already was v'agita boyoma. Now his Laila is his Laila. Look at Rashi 15. He used to make every day to learn a certain amount of chapters, and he did it during the day. And he got busy with business. So he would make it up during his set time at night. So you can make it up. So this is your question about makeups. This is makeup. By the way, just I want you to pay attention in the world. This whole idea of makeup, at least I find it to be a very Jewish thing. Okay, it's not. You don't find it in the Geisha world as much. Something of makeups. It doesn't mean it happens, but it's not really existing. Like existing. This is all based. I believe this is a very Jewish thing. The whole thing of tshuva, of returning, and all these makeups is based on that. Like a Jew will always ask. I sat in college classes, right? In universities. Let's say New York University. I sat there. A Jew will always ask the professor, "Can I make it up? What can I do for additional credit?" I've never seen a guy who asked this. I mean, maybe there is, Yechidim, but like a Jew is I can always make it up. I can make tashlumim. I missed one tefillah, I can make another tefillah, right? I can make it up later. Goyim don't have this principle. It's either, and think about it naturally, it's said and done. The person walks into a fire and burns up. You can't say, "Let me restart and let me go back to it." And naturally, there is no such thing as return. Doesn't it? To go back and to choser on something. You can't. Once you did it. You were driving in the car and you made a wrong turn and you hit somebody. You can't say, "Oh, hold on, let me back up and let me do it again." It doesn't work that way. But that's what Hashem, that's what it says. Hashem made tshuva in the world from before the world was created. Because in Teva, there is no tshuva. It's something that had to be before Teva. So it's a whole idea for itself. But you'll see Jews are always thinking about makeups and stuff like that. I'm going to do it later. I'm going to catch up on it. It's an interesting idea. Okay. Going back to the Shulchan Aruch in 16 here in Torah 16, 265. He goes to Beit Midrash and he learns. It has to be the time will be set. Even if he will make a lot of profits. So here, Shulchan Aruch is saying that what we wanted to say, that you need to have a set time, and that time has to be what we call protected time. Okay, what does protected time mean? No one can touch me, right? As it says, Zot Chukat Torah, Adam ki amut be'ohel, right? You have to be dead at that time to the world, protected. No one can touch me at that time. We have such things, sometimes in schools, students have protected time. This time is always recess, or this time is always that. You can't take that away. The Shulchan Aruch says you have to have some sort of time that even if you're going to make a lot of money, you have to lose out on it, right? That's that famous story. I forgot who it happened with, but I think it wasn't Eretz Yisrael. But there was two merchants who bought the same fabric, right? And the guy came to buy from one of them. He saw it was really nice. The next day he wanted to come back to buy more. And the guy who was selling it was learning, and they told him the guy's waiting. He said, "No, I'm going to learn." So his neighbor, the guy who also bought the same fabric, came out and said, "Come to me. I got the same fabric as him." He says, "No, your fabric is cheaper." He bought it from the same exact ream of fabric. And he waited and waited until the other guy came back from the Beit Midrash, and he bought it from him. You see, you don't lose out in the end. If you follow Be'emunah, the Chachamim, and the Torah and the Mitzvot, you won't go astray. Now, the Ramah in the Haggadah, he brings, the Beis HaMedrash, say, I don't know how to learn. What am I going to Beit Midrash for? If someone's going to say, what am I going to understand? The rabbi is going to talk about ideas and things beyond my ability. I'm not going to understand him. He says, you still go. Because you're going to get the schar, the reward for just going. He should find a little place, study a little bit himself, what he could, and then he should think about what he learned, and he should think about Yirat Shamayim in his heart. I mean, everybody has what they could do. Baruch Hashem, today, the amount of books that are available, amount of svarim, the amount of lectures, tapes. I tell you, you personally can become a genius just from having an internet connection. Okay? Amen. That's no joke. With the stuff that you can learn, just if you know the right websites and where to learn, you're going to learn everything. Right? Rabbi Reisman Shlita has Shulchan Aruch, Yardei Shir online. You can listen. It's like you're learning in yeshiva, or he's giving a yeshiva type of shir on your day. You have all sorts of shirim that you can find, high level shirim. You have Choshen Mishpat shirim online. There are so many sources. You just have to know where to go. You have to know where to find, and you have to know you have to have time. But everybody has their ability to learn. The Mishnah Berurah, he says they have to designate time. The Ita B'Gemara, Kishmachnisan Adam Ladin Shorlinoto, because when he goes up to Shemayim, they ask him, Shviat Eitim Torah, did you set up times to learn Torah? The Tov Shikvaha Et Miyad Achar Tfilah, and you should do it right after Tfilah. Why? Because it says in Pasuk, Yelechu Mechayel El Hayel. You should go up from one to another. And we're worried that if he goes to business and he says, I'm going to learn soon, the whole day is going to go by without him learning because he is busy with his business. It just happens. When a person gets into something, it's very hard to get out of it, right? Especially in business. Like I find sometimes when I come to work, I have some time to learn. I say, you know what? I'll do my work now and then I'll learn later. And usually that never happens. Because what happens is one work leads to another work, then someone calls, then someone asks, then I have to go upstairs. And then by the time I know it's already 6 o'clock, then I have to wrap up whatever I'm doing. And then nothing happens. All right.
They say Kori Pish Pish.
Which means
Whatever you can do early.
you do first. Yeah. Get it done. Okay. Okay. Shelo Yavi Reinu. The Iker Mitzvah Talmud Torah Ein Lo Shir V'Chiyuva Hu Kol Hayom. There's no set time. Kol Zman Sheyesh Lo Panai. Anytime he has opening, B'Dichtiv Lo Yemoshev V'Torah Zerbicha. V'Amar Chazal V'Chilkia B'Shem Rav Simon Ha'aseh Torata Itim Harezeh Harezeh Mafer Berit. If someone makes his Torah study into times, then he's breaking the Brit of Torah. What does that mean? The guy says, I only learn between 8 and 9. And then if he has availability later, he doesn't learn because I only learn between 8 and 9. That's not the way to be. Okay? You have to know that you do learn when you have availability. It's very important to remember that. So you have your Kivela Itim, but you also learn when you're available. That's why you learn on a legal holiday. That's why you learn when you're on a day off. You should be learning more. That's why on Shabbat you learn more because you're off, right? So when you're off, you have to learn more. If you really have to run out of shul that day and you can't learn with everybody who's learning here, so then you should at least learn one pasuk, one halacha, or something before you run out. This way, at least the day starts off on the right foot. That's another important thing. You start the day on the right foot, you'll see you get more things done. Right? Sometimes when I come to work, if I start to work right away, I end up getting more work done that day. Meaning because I started working right away, so I continue to I'm in work mode. But if I come in and I'm procrastinating, I have so much to do, I don't want to do it, so I'm going this way, I'm going that way. Then what happens is the whole day goes by and nothing happens, right? Sometimes how you start off leads to the results. Piskei Tshuvot, he brings Umuva b'shem haramah mipano, shegam et hasha'ah yikva. You should also designate the time of day. You shouldn't learn one day at 7 and one day at 8, but rather every day at the same time. He says, now I know the Shulchan Aruch says you should learn after Tefillah, but there's also an Indian to learn before Tefillah. Because I remember in the good old days when I was back in Mesivta in Torah, we used to have Shaharit at 7:45. And they started a Hashkama program. And they would send around the bus early for boys who wanted to come to yeshiva early. We end up in yeshiva around 6:45, 7. So the bus would come to me about 6:20, right? So I used to go on that bus every single day, not because I really wanted to, but because that bus was a free bus. So my parents said, we're not paying for busing, you're getting on that bus. So I'm having yeshiva anyway early, so I learned. So it was a good thing. We got free busing, and we were learning every single day. We came early, had a whole chart, we filled out things. It was good. It was actually very good learning. And you daven after you learn, it's a whole different davening than when you just go straight to daven. It's already a whole different focus, whole different mindset.
It's not good, not recommended to learn before you daven, especially in Shaharit. Because if you dive,
we're saying it is recommended.
Yeah, but I learned that it's not recommended because if you learn, let's say you go Gemara, like big topic, and then you go into the praying topic, learn is gonna like confuse you when you
right. No, you're 100% right. That's not just on Shachar. That's at any tefillah. You shouldn't come out from Emek Halacha and go into tefillah because you're going to be thinking about the halacha and all that. The only thing I can say about Hashkama learning, okay, this is something very important, and you can try this in your lives, is that if you slept okay overnight and you wake up and you learn, your mind is so much clearer. You can understand stuff so much faster than if you learn at the end of the day or in the middle of the day. Okay? Sometimes that's what I do at home. Like I'll sit down and I want to learn, and I'm learning the Gemara and nothing's making sense and everything is just hard and I don't understand anything that's going on. The whole sugya makes no sense. The whole thing, I'm just like, I can't figure this out. It's way too hard for me. Nothing's making sense. So I close the sefer and I go to bed. Sometimes I'll sleep 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. If I'm lucky, I'll get 7 or 8 hours. But anytime I sleep after 4 or 5 hours of sleep, I wake up and I take out the same Gemara and I learn it again. And this time in 20, 30 minutes, the whole daf is done and I understand the whole thing. Why? Person who wakes up in the morning, he has a new, fresh mind. It works a lot better. So this whole thing of coming in, I can hear it, and it does exist. You don't want to come into davening with your mind overoccupied with something else. But if you set yourself to learn something that you can figure out normally, then that's what you should do at that time. Right Sukkah. So he writes it over here. You should come out of a halacha that's clear. You have to be kvei itim at day and night. Okay, so halacha l'maisa. What did we come out up until this point? We came out that the minimum chiyuv of learning Torah is saying Shema day and night, and then there's another minimum according to everybody's level. So a person cannot excuse himself just with Shema. He has to do according to his level. And we learned you have to do it day and night. And we learned that you should ideally set a specific time, whether the time be an hour or the time be after something, but it should be done every day. And if a person, for whatever reason, cannot do it at one certain time, then he has to make it up at a later point. Okay, any questions at this point before we move on to the next section? Mitzion, any questions?
Somebody mentioned your business was Nisiya Netina. Was that be'emuna? That's how you should
Meaning,
apply it. So
did you believe?
Was that in Emuna that Hakadosh Baruch Hu is providing everything, or was that only I was doing everything?
Right. How else would you see it?
It could be that.
Did you do it
with
legally?
Legally, yeah.
Mitoch emuna. Okay. So several comments on that. That's a good comment. Nasata v'natata be'emuna. A lot of people learn it, meaning that you did business legally, halachically. You know, you didn't steal, you didn't cheat. But what we're saying here is mitoch emuna, which means now how do you go about not stealing and not cheating? Is if you understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in charge, and it's not my hand and not my power that is leading me to the to the business. This is something very important because a lot of times we think it's us, we're doing it, especially when you're successful in something. Like, it's me. But we all know very good and well nothing is us. We really don't do anything. We're just agents, shlichim, right? That's why Mordechai tells Esther, if you don't go and save us, salvation will come from somewhere else, because salvation will come, right? That's what Rav Reisman said. You know, Rav Reisman took a very Shiva Torah took a very big risk by supporting Lee Zeldin, right? Lee Zeldin was a far shot. Everyone knows Republicans to take over the governorship in New York is not an easy thing. Last time we had it was about 20 years ago, Governor Pataki, right? Since then, we haven't had a Republican governor. But Rav Reisman took that position. He felt that it was a thing he had to do. So after they lost, Lee Zeldin lost, people said, no, you said. To vote, we voted. It didn't work out. Now what's going to be? They quoted this pasuk in Megillah. Pasuk in Megillah says, Mordechai tells Esther, if you don't do it, Hashem will send salvation from somewhere else. Same thing. We did what we can. It didn't work out. Salvation will come from somewhere else. All right. Now, the next part of this Tzurba Rabbanon is, what are we to learn? Person has only a certain amount of time to learn. What do you learn during that time? What's the most important thing to learn?
Halacha.
So we're going to see the halacha l'maisa that's going to be halacha. I love the fact that the Tzurba ends off this part of it that you should learn the Tzurba, as if there was no bias there. But just to know, Rav Mordechai Eliyahu was very Mordechai Eliyahu Zecher Tzadik L'Bracha was very supportive of the Tzurba Rabbanon. They have him on video. You can watch it on YouTube, where he says, if a person really wants to know halacha nowadays, you have to learn from Tzurba Rabbanon. I don't know if he was saying it's time to support them more, but he said it. Rav Yitzchak Yosef Shlita, when speaking at a Tzurba event, they were making a siyum on the Tzurba Rabbanon, finishing up the Svarim Tzurba Rabbanon. He said that Tzurba Rabbanon made a mahapecha shel mamash, meaning it made a revolution of people actually keeping halacha l'maaseh, because people understand. You come out of the shir and you know what you're supposed to do. You know the machloket. You know what's the maximum, what's the minimum. You have a clear idea of halacha l'maaseh. Rav Shlomo Amar also said similar words about the Tzurba Rabbanon. So he's going to end off by saying, Tzurba Rabbanon. I don't know if you have to do that, but you should definitely have a halachic program that you're a part of. So let's start off with Masechet Kedushin. Masechet Kedushin, Daf Lamed, again talking about Torah. Person should always divide his years. Seems to be saying Shalotav. Right? Shalish b'mikra, a third in Mikra. Shalish b'mishnah, a third in Mishnah. Shalish b'Talmud, and a third in Talmud. So you should divide your years in thirds and learn 1/3 of your life Tanakh, 1/3 of your life Mishnah, 1/3 of your life Talmud. So the Gemara says, how do you know how long you're going to live? You know you're going to live how long? How you going to? Yeah, you know for sure, right? So many people live to 120. Okay, so so when it says split, doesn't mean split years, it means split the day. So Rashi understands, what does it mean split the day? Split up the days of the week. We usually don't do this, right? According to Rashi, that means Sunday, Monday, learn Chumash. Tuesday, Wednesday, learn Mishnah. Thursday, Friday, learn Gemara. And I don't know, Friday, Shabbos, review everything. I don't know, something like that. Split it up between the days of the week. Taisus doesn't like that way. He says, perish for contrast, Yemei Shabbat, Klamer, Shnei Yom Mikra, Shnei Yom Mishnah, Shnei Yom Gemara, V'loi Nira. Dim Kain, Akati, Havim Mitzar, Matzah the Mifrach, Me and Dai Kamachai. She asked the same question. How long are you going to live? You know you're going to be around Wednesday? So you cannot say that. But nearly the parish will call Yom B'Yom Atzmai Mishu Yishalei. So like Yosef Chaim says that simple, split it in your day. Taisva says it as a chiddush. Call Yom B'Yom Atzmai Yishalish. Al Kain Tikkun B'Seder of Amram Gaon. Actually, you find of Amram Gaon that every day in the tefillah, what do they do? Kimosha Anu No Gim B'Chol Yom Koidim Sukkot Yisrael Leimer Mikra Mishnah U Gemara. Where we do this, we say Parashat HaTamid. That is the Torah. Then we say Ezehu Mikoman, right? That is Mishnah. And then we say the Bishmael Omer. That's the Gemara. So we have in our tefillah already. We have, that's note 8, by the way. You have Torah, Mishnah, and Gemara. Okay, we're going to see that. Chamavai is going to bring that down, right? Rabbeinu Tam Pirish Anu Smuchen Ahad Amrina B'Sanhedrin. We're going to go what it says in Masechet Sanhedrin. We learned this together in Daf Chav Daled, where it says Bavel. Why is Bavel called Bavel? Why is the Talmud Bavli called the Talmud Bavli? The Lulav B'Mikra, B'Mishnah, B'Gemara. It's all mixed up. In there you have Torah, Mishnah, and Gemara. The Gemara B'Vavel B'Lul Min Kulam. It's all mixed up with everything. So according to Rabbeinu Tam, you have to learn Gemara every day. Because Gemara, it has everything in it. So according to Rashi, you split up the days. According to Taisa, you split up the hours of the day. And according to Rabbeinu Tam, just learn Gemara. Now, the Rambam learns a little different. Because here, when the Gemara said, Shalish b'Talmud, Rashi and Tosfot and Rabbeinu Tam are learning it to mean Gemara. Rambam doesn't learn Talmud to mean Gemara. Rather, the Rambam learns Talmud to be hilpul. Okay? Understand one thing from another. Mechiv, l'shalish l'shlish is zman l'midato, shlish b'Torah shebichtav, v'shlish b'Torah shebalpeh. A third in Mishnah and Gemara, he says, Torah shebalpeh. V'shlish yavin v'yaskil acherit davar merishato. Mereshito, v'yotzi davar midavar, v'yidme davar ledavar, v'yavin b'midot she'atorah nidreshet bahen. The Rambam says a third of the day has to be involved with an analytical skills, meaning you look at the Gemara as the Gemara looks at the Mishnah. Understand? You look at the Gemara as the Gemara looks at the Mishnah. The same way the Gemara goes and breaks up the Mishnah, what does this mean? You have to start doing that to the Gemara and everything you're learning. You have to learn one thing from another. You have to do pilpul. That's what the Rambam says. That's called Gemara. According to the Rambam, Gemara is not what we call Gemara. That's Talmud Bavli. Gemara is learning one thing from another. Ketzad? Rambam, Maimonides, Hilchot Talmud Torah. Ketzad. Now, how do you learn? 3 says 3, split up the day into 3, right? How do you do that? He's working in his job. How much he works in his job? I love this Rambam. Look at what the Rambam says. How long are you working? Shlosh sha'ot bayom. He works 3 days. Torah tesha. So he has 9 hours to learn Torah. And it's not just the Rambam. Everyone in his generation says the same thing. You work 3 hours and you learn 9. Otana tesha koreh b'shalish min haTorah shebichtav u'shalish b'Torah shebal peh u'shalish aharot u'mitfonen b'da'ato la'avin davar v'davar b'divrei kabbalah b'chlal Torah shebichtav hein u'pirushan b'chlal Torah shebal peh ve'inyanim hanikraim pardes b'chlal gemara hein. So he says, so now you have the 9 hours and you split it up. Now, now when is this all said? When do you split up the day into 3? He says it's only when you're a starter, when you're a novice learner, when you're just beginning to learn. When a person starts learning, becomes more of a Talmud Chacham, he doesn't have to learn Mishnah Gemara. He doesn't have to learn Torah Shevichtav. Rather, Yikar be'itam mezumanim Torah Shevichtav v'divrei Shmuel kedei shelo yishkach davar v'divrei dinei Torah. V'yifne kol yamav ligmara bilvad. And rather, he should spend all day in Gemara bilvad, in Pilpul. So this seemingly is where the yeshivas nowadays are sourcing not just Gemara, Pilpul, analyzing the Gemara. Pilpul, splitting the hairs of the Gemara, right? You know, if you go into any advanced level-based medrash, the shirim are not on the Gemara. The shirim are in the Pilpul of the Gemara, right? The Chetza, the Gavra, the Gufa Shel Mitzvah. This is like you're dealing with analytical skills. The way I have my Gemara class is not a Pilpul class. The Pilpul class would go and start to break down. It's Reb Chaim. It's a very Pilpul type of learning. I said that's what a person has to do all day. As much as he can. So according to the Rambam, you don't have to split up your day all the time. You split up your day until you're a Talmud Chacham. Once you're a Talmud Chacham, you can spend all day on Pilpul. Now, the Lechem Mishnah, he writes, Zeh katav Rabbeinu letet samach she'ein anu nohegim elu b'Talmud. He says the Rambam came to only explain what we're doing today. So today we only learn Talmud, right? You go around to most places, they're only learning Gemara. Most places don't have classes on Chumash, right? That's a girl thing, right? We don't have classes on Navi. That's a girl thing, right? Men are only learning Gemara. So it says that's why the Rambam came and says, that's why he states his own opinion, his own logic. The Rambam is saying his own logic that you only learn Gemara because that's what people are doing. So it must be that you only do that. You only learn 3 in thirds until you're a Talmud Chacham, and then you don't have to do it anymore. Shulchan Aruch says, "Chayiv adam l'shalosh limudai b'madvar emurim b'schilas limud shel adam av k'shiyig the b'tayr lo yitzarich limud Torah shebechtav lo lasak tamid Torah shebal peh yikra be'itam mezumanim Torah shebechtav v'divrei Torah shebal peh." V'yesh, I remember this is the Ramah. Shebetal ben Mavli, he's learning like Tosfos, right? The Shulchan Aruch wrote down exactly for Rambam, and the Ramah brings Tosfot. V'yesh shebetal ben Mavli shu belu b'mikra mishra Gemara adam yitzidei chavoto b'shvil ha'kol. So the Ramah brings down, you learn Gemara, and that's what most Ashkenazim do. According to this Ramah, the ganze Tag, the whole day is Gemara, which you're going to see that the Taz and Shach, both Ashkenazim, great commentators on the Shulchan Aruch, were very not happy with people just learning Gemara all day, because you do not paskin halacha from Gemara. If you learn the Gemara and the Mishnayot and you decided you're going to know what the halachot of Shabbat are, you're going to be all backwards. We don't paskin from Gemara, we don't paskin from Mishnah. Okay? So the Taz and Shach both say it's not appropriate to learn Gemara all day. What's Gefet? All right, so Gefet is Gemara, Rashi, Perish Rashi, and Tosfot. Okay, Gefet. The law sharp poiskin. Gefet. They learn all day Gefet.
Rashi, Tosfot.
Tosfot. The law sharp poiskin. V'riyitzam musa misayf nida. It says in the end of Nida that you learn halachas every day, and you can't paskin from Talmud. You have to learn halacha. So Avali Nira. So it says the Taz. This is not any time person talking. This is the Taz. You know what the Taz was. Amazing. He says Avali Nira the tzerich lo'osik b'sifrei hapoiskim kegoyin alfasi. You have to learn the Rif and the Mordechai and all the other poskim, the Rosh. The Einim Yoitzim Klal b'learning Gemara Pirish Rashi V'Taisus L'chod. And learning Gemara Rashi and Taisus is not enough. Not considered good learning every day. The time of Eliyahu Kol Shana L'chod and Pirish Rashi. What does it mean? Kol Shana L'chod. Hilchot Pesukot. Clear halachas that the actual track is. Umash Shekater Ben Tam Shas Babli Kai Ama Shektav L'Fnei Zeh Elema Teisha Shas B'Yom. He says when Rabbeinu Tam said learn Babli, that's if you have 9 hours a day to learn. The Kivish Yesh Shloi Panai Gadol Yulma B'Shas. Now he has all day to learn. He can learn Shas. He has time. Avo Hinach Bali Batim. So now this is the generation of the Taz. How many hours does the Taz say you're supposed to learn today? This is going to drop from 9, but it's Yisavah Hinach Bali Batim. She'enim Loidim Rak Gimel Odala Choice. Still a lot of time compared to our days, right? 3 or 4 hours a day. So if you're only learning 3 or 4 hours a day, Loi Yilmadu B'Shas L'Chud. You should not learn Shas alone. K nearly. So says the Taz. The Taz says, and he's talking about people who have 3 to 4 hours a day to learn. You should not be learning Gemara Rashi Tosfot alone. Rather, you should be learning clear halachot. So a person could come out with ideas of what he's supposed to do in life. Okay. So what do you do with all this pilpul that all the yeshivas are doing? So yeshivas, you have the time, but do they actually learn halachas there? That's another whole question. From my experience in yeshivas, they didn't spend so much time on halachas.
They did by Ashkenazi.
For Ashkenazi yeshivas, I'm saying.
No, but maybe they did by Ashkenazi.
Even Ashkenazi halachas, they didn't spend so much time. They just don't. The whole day is reading Gemara. I mean, you have maybe a rebbe or someone's giving a halacha chabura, but even then, I learned Hilchah Shabbos in yeshiva in Mesivta, which was instead of an English class, there was an extra period. So Rabbi Ephraim Glassman, he gave a chabura in Hilchah Shabbos during that time, 45 minutes. Okay. So anyway, look into the Alka Yosef, and we'll end off. We'll end off quickly. So the Alka Yosef says also if you have only 3 or 4 hours to learn.
Good.
Right? He says you have to learn from the Paiskim because we lived through that. You do not yotze your chayv to learn from learning Gemara and Mishnah. As it says in Maseches Nida. And the same thing is brought in the Shulchan Aruch Harav, right? Rav Shneir Zalman, the Balatanya, right? The first Lubavitcher Rebbe. He says, so you have to, according to the same thing here, Shneir Zalman says, Balatanya says, if you have limited time to learn, and we're talking about 3 to 4 hours, they keep saying, you should be learning halacha and not Gemara. Okay, so what should we say? Where today, most people, if you ask them how much time you have to learn, maybe get an hour out of them, maybe 2 if you're lucky. So how can a person spend all his day learning Daf Yomi or something like that? Because this is not just Friday post I'm saying. We're brought from the Taz, from the Alka Yosef, and we brought from Shulchan Aruch Harav. They're all saying the same thing. You should be spending your time learning clear halakha to know what to do. A lot of people are always stuck. I don't know what to do. Oh, I'm sure this is okay, that's okay, and then they don't ask because they don't know who to ask, and or they don't have what time to ask, and they're left not knowing anything. So so far this is where we got up to. As Hashem, next week we'll continue with some practical ideas. You have to learn. You have to learn. Halakha. Learn halakha. The majority they have to be learning halakha. You have to learn halacha. Okay, next week we'll be dealing with primarily. Next week if it works out this year for next week, but next week we're dealing primarily with women learning Torah, both Torah Shemal Peh and Torah Shebichtav, Can they? Can't they not? Don't shake your head one way or the other until you learn the actual halachot. Okay. Maybe we don't know yet. Okay. Because it's Hanukkah next week. I don't know what's going to be. Okay. Shavua tov l'kulam. Toda rabba.
תורה ויעדים. אמן. 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 יש מאור כמו העדה. אמן. 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 ואומר אצל עם ישראל. אמן.